about your operator.
Have no fear, fellow citizens. The Mediator is here.
Good morning and welcome to this week's edition of The Mediator with me, your host, Brian West, here to give you the top 8 headlines and developing news stories that made it this week. Now, as usual, I'll give you the top 8 local headlines and developing news stories that made it first, followed by a movie clip, a skit, a trailer, or something that's going on in the community, or maybe some pictures. And then I'll give you the top 8 international headlines and developing news stories that made it this week, folks. So let's waste no time. Oh, yeah. Woo. Let's get to it. Story number 1, Black history is a topic of discussion locally. Black America is watching and speaking out about this Black History Month. Now, one local headline talking about the reflections of the segregated South shows how some locals are keeping the tradition and memories alive. The reflection program took place at Beulah Baptist Missionary Church on the south side of Youngstown. Parts of Ohio did serve as the Underground Railroad routes, including Salem, Ohio. That's my story number 1. Crept in this week. Story number 2, changes coming, big changes coming to YSU. Improvements are coming to Youngstown State University's Kill Colley Center. The center will undergo a 2.5-year reconstruction project in the near future, turning what local reports say will be a retail and student services hub. Wow, that's pretty amazing. Now, the $5 million donation from the Zolden family of Phantom Fireworks will be spent to reconstruct the 58-year-old hub. So that's why story number 2 crept in this week. Story number 3, how are local people handling all of the bad news? First it was COVID, then inflation, train derailments, and even local shootings that are being, so we've been getting a lot of bad news. Now, death has also been a factor locally, but local residents have been hanging on. Some locals have chosen to open their own businesses. Some have started to reattend church, and some have even decided to podcast themselves, do themselves their own podcast. Either way, it appears that everyone has been finding a way to cope with all of the bad news. Some people have even gone back to the gym. The good thing is that local residents are finding a way to deal with all of the stress. That's why story number 3 crept in this week. Story number 4, eligibility question. 2 candidates are in question. Dominique R. Leon, the third Dominique R. Leon III, and Dowdy Lacey. Now, Dowdy Lacey, who according to local reports was interested in running for Youngstown Council First Ward seat, will be ineligible after determining that 8 signatures on the nominating petition was signed by the same person. Wow. Now, with those signatures thrown out, Dowdy only had 19 valid signatures. Now, the candidate needed 25. Now, Dominique R. Leon III was only able to get 45 valid signatures. He needed 50. So he submitted petitions with 75 names with 30 invalid signatures, according to a local Vindicator report published February 21st. This story is still developing, and that's why story number 4 crept in this week. Story number 5, is Poland preparing for the worst? Poland schools have made headlines because they say they have a plan B just in case voters do not vote for a new school building. Now, just like Youngstown and a handful of other districts, the challenge now is getting the word out in hopes that Poland residents will vote for the levy. Now, Poland schools, their school enrollment has been increasing. This is another story that is still developing. Big headlines. Story number 6. Now, I have to correct myself. I just did a documentary on what they're calling East Palestine, but they're saying that it's pronounced East Palestine. Now, I want to be informative. In English, I is pronounced I, as in Mike DeWine. So in English, it would probably be East Palestine. But in Spanish, Tina is pronounced with the E. So in Spanish or in French, it would probably be pronounced East Palestine. So there's been a lot of confusion on how to pronounce East Palestine. But I'll keep saying, because I'm from America and we do speak a different type of English, I will say East Palestine. but others you'll probably hear they're saying that the correct thing is East Palestine. It depends on where the word originated from. So will East Palestine or East Palestine be okay? That's story number 6. Now there's a lot of attention on East Palestine or East Palestine due to the train derailment, so there's a lot of headlines to comb through. Now the most recent is the fact that the federal officials have vowed to make the railroad company pay for the cleanup. That's one fact. Now another headline about a health clinic being set up in the village has also made headlines. Now the business community is also asking for prayers in East Palestine or East Palestine. They're saying that some of them have had to close up for a few days, or some of them have, I hope none have had to close up permanently. That hasn't been reported yet. Now Mark Andio, a Valley native, has funded a small documentary project that is on the website if you want to learn more from the people on the ground in East Palestine or East Palestine. After visiting there, I would say that because of the people in the village, I personally think that East Palestine or East Palestine, if you want to be specific, will be okay. That's why story number 6 made it this week. They have some great people and they are grouping together, but I think all of this coverage has really frightened a lot of people. So that's why story number 6 almost made it to the top 2 this week. Story number 7 and the top 2. Local headlines and developing news stories that made it this week. Whew, folks, I have been working overtime. I've been everywhere. So whatever you can do to assist me here at this lovely, lovely location at 5648 Market Street, you are more than welcome. I've been pulling my weight. Being an independent media company is not easy. I do not get corporate sponsors. I do not get all that stuff. It comes from you, the viewers, by buying something in the store, getting your car washed or detailed, and that's what I'm here for. So story number 7, school meals become a topic of discussion. This is another big headline. Now, how did breakfast and lunch for all school children in the state become a concern? The Hunger Free School Coalition has made local headlines. The group is calling on the Ohio General Assembly to help fund school meals at a cost of $20 million per year. Now, the coalition consists of the Ohio Education Association, Ohio Federation of Teachers, United Way, Ohio Children's Hospital Association, Ohio chapter of the American Academy of Pediatrics, and the Children's Hunger Alliance, and others, other organizations, according to a local Vindicator report. Now, the current school program is federally funded, the current school program that we have, but there's a but. It has to do with the federal poverty level, and that's some people say that's unfair, and that's why the story is making it in. Now, the ultimate goal is to fight hunger, and those groups see a solution to the problem. That's why story number 7 made it to the top 2 this week. Big head. Story number 8 and the top local headline and developing news story that made it this week. Folks, I was always told that if you are special, or you have some form of what they telling you have a disability or some type of malfunction, the best thing to do sometimes is to think of it as a gift. And I have the gift to tell stories, read stories. I'm not better than anybody else. I just have this gift to write, and that's what I enjoy using. But I'm using my gifts for the right thing, to inform. So I hope I'm a good influence on the world. I don't want to be a bad influence. Some people talk about conspiracies and stuff, but I'm just reading the stories that are happening in real time. That's my gift. And let's get to story number 8, because there's a lot of people out there doing some wild things. Youngstown's 2% remain a question. Speaking of wild things, crime has been a thorn in the side of Youngstown officials' plans for years, folks. This has been going on for a while. Now, this story resonates after a 21-year-old man was reported to be in critical condition. This story aired Sunday, so that may developed over time. Now, he was shot on Interstate 680. Now, this is yet another reason why local residents have been displeased with the 2% who commit most of the crimes locally. Now, they seem to be fueling the migration from Youngstown, thus causing a continued drop in population. This is another story that is still developing. Well, folks, those are our top 8 local headlines and developing news stories that made this week. I'll be right back with the top 8 international headlines and developing news stories. So don't you go anywhere. You're in the media with me, Brian West. I'll be right back.
What does Method8Inc.com Media Center have that I need?
Small prints,
event consulting, photography, business consulting, technical consulting, entertainment consulting, fundraising advice, event videography, movies, news, publishing, media, books, entertainment, acting, broadcasting, public relations, access to the visual and performing arts, ink and black ink refills, audio recording, graphic design, theater, minor computer and cell phone repair, and they're located at 5648 Market Street in Boardman, Ohio from 10 a.m. until 6 p.m. every Monday through Friday. The list goes on and on.
Method8inc.com. Buy stuff, watch stuff, or read stuff.
Oh yeah! And yes, we are chipmunks.
Let every voice I sing till earth and heaven ring with the harmony of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening sky. Let us march on till victory is won. Song full of the hope that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the dark that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun as our new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won.
Welcome back. Now it's time to get to the top 8 international headlines and developing news stories that made it this week. Folks, I am confused this Black History Month. I really am. People are getting they're getting concerned about the Black National Anthem being sung, and there's all this talk about racial inequality and critical race theory. And I got a theory. It's called critical jungle theory. Being raised in the inner city and what a lot of people call the hood or the ghetto, I saw some weird things in my life. And I got this theory, critical jungle theory. And that is that some people still think that we're in the jungle. Now, if you've ever been raised in the inner city, there are all different types of races inside the inner city. And there's this jungle mentality. I mean, territorial, violence, critical. And when you see Afro-American police officers beating up on other Afro-Americans, these are the things that people in the inner city are susceptible to seeing all the time. In some situations, there'll be beat downs and lynchings, and no police will ever show up. Folks, these are the chronicles of mediation. Being a peacemaker myself, I've often taken punches from other African Americans when I was growing up in the inner city. So this African American History Month, don't be confused. Like me, I'm confused sometimes. But if you feel like you want to sing a song, it's okay to celebrate Black History Month and to celebrate Black American heritage by singing the Black National Anthem, because it was made with good intentions. And I hope it frees some people who are suffering from critical jungle theory, thinking that we can all just create one race of people and everything will be fine and dandy. There are certain people who do still have that theory, folks. Well, I'm glad I got that off my chest in mediation. Let's waste no time, folks. Let's get to it. Story number 1. Black doctors needed. According to CNN Health Report, only 5.7% of U.S. doctors are black. The headline goes on to read that experts warn the shortage harms public health. Black History Month and the consistent news about African American health issues is what got this story in. So story number 1 made it in this week. Story number 2, HSBC reports a profit. What does that mean? Folks, BBC reports that HSBC says that its quarterly profit has doubled, and also states that it was boosted by rising interest rates around the world. Now, the reported profits before tax was set at about $5.2 billion for the last 3 months of 2022. Now, that's up 90% from the last year around, that was around this same time. That's what the report claims. Now, the key data point in that pre-tax profit for the year is as a whole, they're saying that it failed. That the key data point for that whole year is that it fell by 1.4 billion to 17.5 billion. I hope you're getting this, because this story will keep economists' attention on the data. That's the key word. The data could show how rising interest rates and inflation affect bank profits. So this is all data that's coming in. Now that's what got the story in, is the fact that this data is what economists are looking at and seeing how it affects the money and how we all behave economically. That's why story number 2 crept in this week. Story number 3. Fox News reports that ongoing bird flu has cost the government around $661 million. Now, this is added to the consumer's pain at the grocery store. This is what the report claims. Now, the key note in the article is the fact that 58 million birds have been slaughtered to limit the spread of the bird flu virus. So this is all in this report. Now, this took place on 300 commercial farms in 4 states. Now, the current price of eggs and food is what got the story in. It adds to a growing list of concerns and problems that need to be solved. And that's why story number 3 crept in this week. Big hit. Story number 4. Guns remain a critical, a central topic and a critical one. TSA reports a rise in guns at security checkpoints. One BBC report says that an assault rifle with 163 rounds of ammunition was taken from a man boarding a plane. The report also said that 2022 was a record year. TSA intercepted a record 6,542 guns at airport checkpoints across the United States last year, with about 88% of them being loaded with ammunition. The real question is, who got through without being noticed? Now, the increase in gun stories is what got the story in, and the recent rise in mass shooting stories also got the story in. Global conditions could be what is contributing to the rise in guns use. Well, folks, those are our top 4 international headlines and developing news stories that made this week. I'll be right back with the top 4, so don't you go anywhere. You're in the Mediator with me, Brian West. I'll be right back. If you want to check out the stories that almost made it in or did make it in, go to our Twitter feed on our website. Check out everything. All of the sources are there. Go to the website. It's method8inc.com, method8inc.com, where you can buy something, click on something, watch something, read something, or just sponsor a program. Welcome back. Now it's time to get to the top 4 international headlines and developing news stories that made it this week. Folks, we are at the end of Black History Month, and I hope everybody learned something. I've learned a few things. I've learned that really not much has changed. Democrats are still Democrats. Republicans are still Republicans. To be honest with you, growing up in this lovely country that we live in, sometimes I don't know who to trust as politicians, and I don't know what to trust is for. But I do seem to ask a lot of questions, especially when I'm starting to try to stray away from asking people, are you a Democrat or are you a Republican? Because I'm finding out that Democrats may be a little different, and Republicans may be a little different. But one thing I did learn is that when I was a kid, seeing people walking around with gang flags and red or blue is frightening. So I'm a little frightened now, because I'm starting to believe that there are gang affiliations in Washington, D.C. And these gangs fighting it out, and they have big guns, big weapons, nuclear weapons. And I think that the gang violence has escalated into the prestigious, distinguished field of politics. Now, being a mediator and staying in the middle, I often have to see this gang violence taking center stage. And I'm frightened. But I have to survive, and I have to stay independent so I can think for myself. Whew. Well, folks, I'm glad I got that off my chest. Let's waste no time. Let's get to it. Story number 5. The wave of environmental mishaps making headlines has everyone's attention. Here are some facts. Environmental mishaps are nothing new to America and the world, but a few recent stories have kept environmental disasters in the headlines. 13 people were injured in a metal factory explosion in Ohio. The explosion fire killed a maintenance worker, thus making environmental issues a top concern for the world at the moment. Now, the continued circulation of news about East Palestine, or East Palestine, if you want to be specific, is what got this story in. Well, East Palestine, if you want to be specific. East Palestine, if you're just an average old English speaking African American like me. So that's why story number 5 made it this week. Big. Story number 6. Is death really in the air, or is it just culture? Here's some stories, folks. A Texas neighbor reacts after 3 teens were killed in a murder-suicide after they were identified. Now, that's one headline reported in Fox News. New Jersey father kills wife, 2 children in an apparent murder-suicide at home. That's another Fox News report. Chicago shooting on I-57 leaves adult 2 children dead. That's another Fox News headline. Chicago fiery drag racing crash leave 3 dead, including 2 teenagers. That's another Fox News headline. 2 Detroit police officers found dead in an apparent murder-suicide. That's another Fox News headline report. Florida 3-year-old dies after shooting himself with a gun he found in his parents' nightstand. This is a report in USA Today. Now, these are all reports showing that a culture of death has swept across the nation somehow. The death rate in 2022 was 8.4 per 1,000 people. So 8.4 per 1,000 people, which is not a record, but it still sounds the alarm. I think the record was in 1973, but I'll double check that for you. That's why story number 6 almost made it to the top 2 this week. The death angel is flying around. Big. Story number 7 and the top 2 international headlines and developing news stories that made it this week, folks. I am speaking life into news stories, life into the atmosphere. Story number 7, inflation remains a concern. I speak that inflation down in the name of Jesus. Story number 7, inflation remains a concern. Big headline. People are complaining about food prices. Oh my God. This is a serious story for those less fortunate, for the less fortunate folks. One report and headline for subscribers in the USA Today. Yes, they have subscribers. You have to be a subscriber to get certain stories in the USA Today. It says that inflation could ease faster than the Fed believes. Now, there was another CNN business headline that said something else, but like I said, it's a little confusing right now seeing what the numbers are. There's so many data numbers now. This is reducing the need. The Fed said that this is reducing the need for rate hikes and thus easing recession risk. So there's a lot of financial talk going on, and you have to be real financially literate to kind of understand a lot of stuff. So I'm trying to simplify it for you, and that's why the story made it. Now the story is still developing. One BBC London Fashion Week report says that the cost of living is fueling creativity. So they're finding some positive in this. That people, when you get hungry, you get creative, and that's a natural fact, folks. But let me repeat this. So they're saying that inflation could ease faster than the Fed believes, and it's reducing the need for rate hikes and easing recession talk. So I hope you understand how this happens. When they see things improving, then they kind of ease up on things. So that's why story number 7 made it to the top 2 this week, because we're talking money. Big. Story number 8 and the top international headline and developing news story that made it this week, folks. for you, to keep you informed, to show you some love. It's a mediator's world. Mediators made the peace that we all enjoy. And after mediators make all the peace, do you know that mediators made religion to give life to other man? It's a mediator world. Whew, whew. Mediators make peace and news and stories to share. Whew. Mediators made the stories to give to other man. Whew, whew. James Brown. He may have had some flaws with his women, but the man had soul. Story number 8. Medical bills and the cost of medicine is staying in the headlines. Speaking of mediators needing to come and get some of this money to get the cheaper medicine. $138,000 for medicine is the headline in USA Today that's grabbing medical enthusiasts' attention. The headline goes on to pin the blame on the government and not the pharmaceutical companies. Now, President Biden was mentioned in the report, shifting the blame to corporate greed. Now, the article goes on to explain how government intervention into the free market isn't the answer. It goes further to state that one of the biggest reasons why drug prices are so high now is because the federal government protects the pharmaceutical industry from competition abroad. Now, this story is gaining steam and is a must-read. One important note is the fact that more than 500 drug brands do not have any competition. The article also notes that Medicare and Medicaid could be to blame based on how they purchase medicine by the price. This is a very, very big read, especially if you have health problems. That's when story number 8 made it to the top this week. Well, folks, those are our top 8 local and international headlines and developing news stories that made this week. I hope you got something out of today's program. I always get something out of doing the research. As usual, I'd like to thank all the news outlets, the journalists, the people on the front lines. You deserve all the credit. I'm just the mediator, the man in the middle, navigating your stories just to keep people informed. If you want to show some support here at Method 8, it does not take much. All you have to do is visit the website on the screen, buy something, click on something, watch something, read something, or to sponsor a program or stop by the store and get some services. 5648 Market Street. Well, folks, I am out of here in Boardman, Ohio. 5648 Market Street in Boardman, Ohio. I'm out of here, folks. Thank you for tuning to the media with me, Brian West. I'll be back next week looking through over 200 more stories to keep you informed. I hope you learned something this Black History Month. I am out of here. Peace.
Have no fear, fellow citizens. The mediator is here.